listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Open Book, Open Mind. I'm your host. My name is Edgar. Open Book, Open Mind is the podcast where we discuss about books. I regale the listeners, those who bother to tune in, about some thoughts about recent books or authors that I've recently read. Remember, we don't have to like the book. We just need to keep an open mind and give it a try. Unlike the first couple episodes of this series where we dissected, to varying degrees of success, specific novels, there was Nostromo and then Spring Snow from Mushima. Nostromo was from Joseph Conrad. Today, I'm going to highlight a trio of books. The reason being that I read them. I read one of the three in the last few months. The two other ones I read about. I'm reading this author's books about once a year. So I would have started a couple of years ago, and that's Jules Verne, the French novelist, or Jules Verne, if you prefer, a 19th century author. Jules Verne was born in the early 19th century, 1828 to be exact, in Nantes, which is a town in France, and he died in March of 1905 at the age of 77, also in France, in Amiens. And most people have heard of Jules Verne. If you do not know that name, if you have not read any of his novels, there is still a high probability that you have come in contact with a version of his work, some interpretations of his work. If you've seen any film version of 20 Leagues Under the Sea, or Around the World in 80 Days, or Journey to the Center of the Earth, those are, in fact, based off of Jules Verne novels. He was quite prolific. He wrote, I don't have the figure in front of me, but I did see his bibliography not too long ago, and it was a staggering amount of books. Some of these things are real bricks, either 500 plus pages long. Others are briefer. And so I was well aware of Jules Verne and the overarching themes of his oeuvre, but I had never read anything until, as I said, just a couple of years ago, maybe mid to late 2023 was the first time I actually read one, or maybe mid to late 2022 more specifically. That might make more sense. And I was encouraged by a friend to finally read one, give it a try, see what happens. And so the first Jules Verne book that I ever read was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or 20 000 lieues sous les mers, if you prefer. I then followed that up with Journey to the Center of the Earth, Voyage au Centre de la Terre. And most recently, in fact, I finished it maybe 2 to 3 months ago. At the time of this recording, I wish I wrote it. I read The Mysterious Island, L'Île Mystérieuse. 20,000 Leagues was published in not 1870. Mysterious Island, 1875. Journey to the Center of the Earth, a little bit before that, 1864. Those are the three Jules Verne books I have read. And I suppose the most obvious spoiler in the history of spoilers, or if I read one and then followed that up with two more, it's because I liked it quite a bit, which I did. And I just want to talk a little bit about Jules Verne on this week's episode, what kind of a writer he was, what kind of a style to expect if you've not read a Verne yet but are curious. You have an open mind, so you open the book, just like the name of the show. Verne is a fascinating author. He's quickly become one of my favorites. Now, again, I've only read 3 of his works, and he's written, his tally is in the dozens, plural. So I don't have maybe the greatest grasp of his entire oeuvre, but I feel the 3 that I did read are a strong indicator of generally what he's about and his style. I would say 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and The Mysterious Island all have comparable qualities, similar qualities that speak to Jules Verne's interests, his style, the type of stories he likes to tell. I mean, his attention to detail is frankly quite stunning. The worlds he creates, they always feel fully realized. And I'm not necessarily, or at least not exclusively, referring to the characters per se, although the characters are quite interesting and engaging. I'm referring to, quite literally, the physical world, the plant life, the animal life, the fauna, the flora, aqua life, geology, quite literally geology, the study of rocks, the study of land, the study of earth, weather, humidity, dryness. He is a very scientifically driven and naturalistically driven author. Much to my surprise, when I read a drive-by version of his biography, in fact, there's a collection of French books, I think it's called Livres de Poche, and their Jules Verne series. The book covers are all red. They're actually illustrated versions of the books. These aren't massive hardcover editions. These are small paperback, almost fit them in your pocketbooks, but they happen to be illustrated versions. And these red books all have a relatively thorough biography at the end of them. It's not like typically they'll give the 2 to 3 paragraph long biography. This thing is about maybe 8 to 10 pages long. And to my surprise, when I read the biography, Verne studied law in Paris at the university level, and whilst in Paris fell in love with the arts scene, theater and musical plays and poetry and essays and literature and all that jazz. Upon concluding my reading of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I was very anxious to read the biography at the end of the book, because I wanted to figure out, well, what kind of failed academic or failed scientist or failed ecologist is this? What degree did he get at university and then decided to change his mind, or couldn't pierce through and decided to become a member of the arts world, the literary world? And no, he studied law and then started writing a bunch of plays that were put on for show in and around Paris and in and around France. So he's not someone who spent his entire life studying, at least not in an academic context, at an academic institution, ecology and biology and physics and the natural sciences, weather. He has no degrees in those things, but I think, and I was having a good conversation, I believe, with the very person who suggested I start reading Jules Verne, which is, he was probably a very curious mind. He probably learned very quickly. Some of us takes a little bit more energy and a little bit more time. Others, we seem to read it once or twice and we've got it, we understood it, and it's not leaving our brain. It's saved on the hard drive up there in the noggin forever. And maybe he was that type of a person, because he certainly, you certainly need to read a lot to be able to describe so much plant life, so much aqua life, undersea, for throughout the entirety, or almost throughout the entirety, of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. There are passages, extended passages, I must stress, in which the colors of the waters and how what it looks like when the light from, of course, above the surface pierces through the surface of the ocean, starts shedding light onto various plants, various fauna and flora that dwell in the depths of the seas and the oceans, and he really gets into the colors and what the eyes look like and the scales and the sheen on the scales. It's really quite impressive, and it sounds like it would be boring to read after a while, but he has such a jovial way of describing sea life that I thought it was absolutely captivating. It was arresting, and I couldn't put the book down. And it's one of the long ones. I believe it's maybe 400 to 500 pages long. It's not a short book, but it was utterly fascinating. And I think what pleased me about his work, not just 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but also Center of the Earth and Mysterious Island, was he seems to take great pleasure in writing these subject matters. There's a real infectious enthusiasm in hearing him as the narrator or character dialogues. Everybody's pretty smart. Everybody is either a genius when it comes to the sciences and the natural world, or they've lived enough that they can understand it, and then they can hold a conversation about how certain types of rocks react to heat or cold, or how they were made, their colors, and their what they're made of, how lava reacts, how different animals mate, and their seasonal habits, and how they hunt for food. These are very diverse, complicated subjects, and yet Jules Verne has an impressive ease, or at least demonstrates. His style suggests that it's easy for him to understand these concepts and to present them in such a way that they become awe-inspiring. It's a little bit like, mind you, I haven't been to a zoo in donkey's years, but when we're young and we go to a zoo, which is a very controlled environment, but still we get to see animals that we wouldn't see under other circumstances, especially if you live, in a big city, or even out in the country. There are no giraffes in agricultural Quebec. It's a little bit like that, where we're in awe, we're inspired, we're surprised by some of the things we see for the first time with our own two eyes at a zoo. And I think that sense of amazement and beauty, the beauty of the natural world, is conveyed marvelously by Jules Verne, and that includes rocks. Now, of the 3 books I read, I keep referring to rocks because, Journey to the Center of the Earth, that's the one that has to do with a lot of rocks. It's maybe the one of the 3 that I appreciated the least. Incidentally, the shortest of the 3 that I read. That's a bit of kind of interesting. The one I liked the least was the one that wasn't nearly as long as the other 2. I think Journey to at least the version I have is, might not even be 300 pages, or just a little over 300 pages, whereas the other 2 are well over 400, if not 500. But even that one, Journey to the Center of the Earth, he still manages to tell an exciting story of discovery. And that's another thing that's really fun about these books. There's always this sense of discovery. Characters are going on journeys. In fact, there's even a term to describe that sort of theme that Jules Verne wrote about a lot, this sense of discovery, this sense of going out there into the world and seeing new things with your own eyes, sometimes intentionally, deliberately, like Journey to the Center of the Earth or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Other times it's the circumstances make it so that our characters must make a discovery, like on the Mysterious Island, where our quintet of heroes, of protagonists, are there against their own volition. I won't get into spoilers, but they did not expect to be stranded on a unknown mysterious island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That being said, once our characters, regardless of which one of the 3 books I read, our characters are always excited about what they might find out next. and they have very intellectually stimulating conversations about what it is they're seeing and maybe what they should do next to continue their discoveries. And so there's a joviality, there's a positivity that emanates from his books, which personally I find contrasts quite starkly with a lot of other things I read. Now, I'm not suggesting if you want to read books that have a sense of positivity about them, well, Jules Verne is the only author for you. I don't doubt for one second that there are many hundreds of other authors whose stories are told with a greater sense of positivity and ambition, and stories of friendship and camaraderie. But certainly of the books I tend to read, Jules Verne is a little bit off the beaten path. And I appreciate that. I think Jules Verne was an author who took great pleasure in science, took great pleasure in tales of adventure and bravery and boldness, and was a darn good writer. His prose is excellent. It's never too complicated, despite the variety of things in the natural world that he wants to present to the reader. The prose is always very accessible. So it's a lot of fun digging into these good old-fashioned adventures of discovery with a peppering of education involved. There's a great sequence in The Mysterious Island where two characters are trying to figure out where is this island. They don't really know where they are. They have an idea of where they might be, but they don't know for sure. So, they take a look at where the sun is, where does it rise, where does it set, where are the shadows, and they do calculations to determine, to the best of their abilities, with the most accuracy possible under the circumstances, what their exact spot on the globe is. And it's one of the most joyful, at least as a reader, it's one of the most joyful passages in that book. It's a lot of fun being with characters who are smarter than you, more educated than you, but they don't talk down to the reader, and the author, the narrator within the story isn't talking down to the reader. It's almost more like, well, hey, how about we actually listen to these characters, and because their conversation is going to be accessible to the layperson, and I myself, Edgar, am very much a layperson when it comes to the natural world, and you might find this is cool, because it is cool, because they're talking about how the world works. In fact, pretty much the only thing I can imagine, or that I can think of, that I wouldn't say I don't like, but I find puzzling. So a mild criticism of Jules Verne. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, I've only read 3 of his books, but there aren't any women characters. That I do find that quite strange. Now, I have read 3 books where there could only be a finite number of characters. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, well, it's mostly in a submarine. Journey to the Center of the Earth, where it's only a handful of people that go on this journey. Mysterious Island, where it's only a handful of people who are stranded on this island. So there are only going to be so many characters in the books that I read, but none of them have female characters. Is this really a running theme in Jules Verne's work? I don't. Apparently there are some of his books that have female characters. I'll give myself a challenge. I will try to find a Verne that has more of a woman's touch to it. There you have it. That was another episode of Open Book, Open Mind. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a little bit different. I didn't really delve too deeply in any of the 3 books. I wanted to have more of a introduction to Jules Verne, because I think if you're even just passively interested in literature and can find a little bit of time in your day or in your week to read at least a few pages, even if it takes a while to finish a book, and you like adventure and you like great writing, Jules Verne, I would strongly encourage anyone to crack open a Jules Verne. So So on that note, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll catch you again very soon. Take care, guys.